particular, could you tell us about the VetSuccess on Campus program? How has it been expanded and enhanced to date? And what are the 8 keys to success on campus?
It's the mission of VetSuccess on Campus is to provide supportive services necessary to ensure that veteran students are successful in their academic pursuits, that we help them adjust to campus environment and eventually transition to civilian employment. What we do is we put a trained and experienced vocational rehabilitation and employment counselor on the campus full-time. They're there every day as a full-time job. And what these counselors do is they provide outreach to our veterans and those service members that may be going there, as well as dependents. They provide professional counseling as it relates to disabilities, vocational goals, academic achievement, and much, much more, as you might imagine. They also administer and interpret education and vocational assessments. So, in other words, they help veterans do that assessment as they go through their academic career. As you might imagine, putting a fully trained and experienced vocational rehabilitation and employment counselor on the campus, they're very familiar with all of the VA benefits and can help those veterans sort of navigate through all of those benefits. So these counselors are not just for wounded warriors or disabled veterans. They're for all of the veterans on that campus. And so you asked about its growth. The program sort of started as a pilot in 2009 at the University of South Florida. Since then, we've sort of gone through multiple evolutions. We grew from 1 pilot site to 8 campuses, then to 32 campuses, and this year we're now at 94 campuses. So we've grown the program rather quickly. We're also reaching out for new partners throughout the program. For example, this coming year, we're going to be placing AmeriCorps volunteers on several of our VSOC campuses to help us deal with some of the issues surrounding veterans and to give us more boots on the ground as we look at this. So that's sort of the VetSuccess on Campus program. We're very, very proud of it, very excited about it. At 94 campuses, we're institutionalizing a lot of these things, but we've seen a great deal of success, no pun intended.
What is VA doing to enhance opportunities for veterans to obtain knowledge and skills to properly transition into civilian life? We will ask Curt Coy, Deputy Undersecretary for Economic Opportunity within the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, when our conversation continues on the Business of Government Hour. Welcome back to the Business of Government Hour. I'm Michael Keegan, your host, and our guest today is Curt Coy, Deputy Undersecretary for Economic Opportunity within the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. So I'd like to discuss efforts to improve employment outcomes. And in particular, would you tell us about the Veterans Employment Initiative Task Force? What recommendations has it offered to maximize career readiness transitioning service members?
The President's plan was to call for a career-ready military. And so to meet that call, the VA and the Department of Defense led the Veterans Employment Initiative, or VEI as you referred to it, task force, and proposed a new training and services delivery model to help strengthen the transition of our service members. I was on that task force. From the work that was accomplished on this Veterans Employment Initiative task force, the bottom line that came out of that is a redesigned transition assistance program, the TAP program, and the TAP GPS program, goals, plans, and success. And so that was centered around sort of 4 key concepts. Adopt standards of career readiness for transitioning service members. In other words, making sure that service members are prepared to leave the Department of Defense and are ready. Implement a revamped transition assistance program curriculum. Implement a capstone event where a service member receives validation. In other words, making sure that that service member has been deemed ready to transition from DoD to civilian life. And then finally, implement a military life cycle transition model. In other words, rather than cram all of this in their very end of their enlistment or their service in DoD, create a culture across DoD that when they begin their service in the military at boot camp, they begin this process of making sure that they're going to be career ready as they leave the service. So those four concepts, sort of reinforce that effective transition that can contribute to those positive outcomes, meaning meaningful employment. And that meaningful employment affects the veteran, and affects their family, and affects the communities that they live in. And so a successful veteran in a community also helps drive the economic success of that community.
So, Curt, would you elaborate on VA's vocational rehabilitation and employment benefits? What has been done to expand it?
Well, as I've mentioned earlier, Michael, the Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment Program is for wounded warriors and disabled veterans, and assists those folks with service-connected disabilities to prepare for, find, and keep suitable or meaningful employment. And so those veterans that have that service-connected disability that are so severe that they cannot immediately work, this program also offers services to improve the lives of those veterans to live as independently as possible. So we have in our vocational rehabilitation and employment service, we have 5 tracks: re-employment, rapid access to employment, self-employment, employment through long-term services, and then independent living. So 4 of our 5 tracks are all geared toward employment. And we have a wide swath of tools that veterans can leverage to achieve those goals of employment and or independent living. So the first one, for example, is education and training. Talked about the post-9/11 GI Bill, the most extensive, comprehensive educational benefit ever provided to veterans. Those veterans that have disabilities or are wounded warriors, they get all of that, and they get much, much more, which is incredibly exciting as I go through it. And so, for example, if you're a post-9/11 vet, you would get not only all of the post-9/11 GI Bill benefits, but much more. For example, instead of 36 months of benefits, you would get 48 months. For example, instead of $1,000 a year for books, you get books. Whether it's $500 or $1,500, we pay for the books. We pay for 100% of your tuition, because in some cases of the post-9/11 GI Bill, we pay up to a certain amount. There's different business rules. In vocational rehabilitation and employment, you get tuition, period. And so what we do is it provides all of those benefits and more. We also have counselors. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we have over 800 counselors across the country, 56 regional offices, and a number of offices that are out-based. And what our VR&E counselors do is also help veterans with their resume, job seeking, job placement. They help participate them in mock interviews, networking with employers, negotiating salary requirements. And so we do an entire sort of case management for that wounded warrior or disabled veteran. We also provide counseling to all veterans. We call it our Chapter 36 educational counseling. And that provides a wide range of educational and vocational counseling to veterans, service members, and eligible family members that are using GI Bill benefits across the board. I think one of the other things that we've started in the last number of years is the Integrated Disability Evaluation System. And what that does is it places over 200 vocational rehabilitation and employment services counselors within DOD bases. And so before that veteran gets out of the service, we have a counselor there explaining to that wounded warrior or disabled veteran the benefits and services, and we start that case file while they're still in DOD.